Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. It's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my co-host with me, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Hey, Jimbo, tell everybody where we're at and who we're talking to today.
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in Osage, man. We're over here in western Osage County, just outside Fairfax, Oklahoma, at the home of Mark Freeman IV, who comes from a great ranching family with a deep tradition here in the Osage, also with a very deep connection to the Osage people, just a very well-respected family. And he was also a heck of a steer roper, made the national finals, and roped and placed all over the country. And we're just glad to he invited us over. And Mark, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Thank you.
Woohoo! We've been trying to catch up with Mark J here for a while, haven't we?
I know it. Every week or so you said, we need to do Mark Freeman. Well, get it set up.
We finally got her set up.
You trapped me.
I mainly know him from the rodeo days.
Right.
We called him Ranchy back then.
Right.
You know why?
Well, where did you get the nickname Ranchy? I got to start off with the whole deal. Something I've always wondered.
Well, the great announcer, Clem McSpadden, every time he'd announce I was on deck or in the hole, he'd talk about the ranching family I come from, and I might show up with tie strings on my swells, medicine bags tied to my saddles, and I might be riding something that's never even been to town yet. And Clem would say he's a little ranchy. And then Delbert Kyler came with it and started calling me Ranchy, and it stuck nationwide. So there's where Ranchy came from.
That's two pretty big guys right there. How many people have we had mention Clem in this podcast in their personal career? It's just something about it.
All the time. You know, he was just the best known rodeo announcer in my lifetime anyway. You know, when you think of Clem McSpadden, you just think of a great rodeo announcer.
He had the voice.
Yeah, he did. And he knew what he was talking about, you know.
He did.
Like Cody and I said the other day, he didn't play loud music in between the runs and stuff. You know, he knew the stats, and he knew the horse he was riding, and your family connection, just everything. Right. You know, he did his homework, and it really showed in the way he announced.
Hey, I like the loud music between the runs.
Well, you would, though.
Jimbo.
I'm not surprised at that.
Hey, that other guy I mentioned, too. You know, I think we should really give him a mention on this podcast before we get really good and started. It's old Delbert Kyler.
He was a great spokesman for rodeo, a supporter of rodeo, you know, traveled all over and roped and supported the steer ropers especially, you know, just donated the saddle to the national finals and all that. You know, he's just a very well-respected guy.
They still have great ropings over at his house to this day. One of the best roping pens I've ever roped in. Delbert Kyler built and designed, and it is a beautiful place to rope to this day out at the Barkay.
He took me out there one time before he ever built it and showed it to me where he was going to build it down there in that creek bottom, and I knew then it was really going to be special.
One of my favorite things about Delbert, we'd be going down the road, and it'd be getting evening time, you know. Delbert, he'd have that cigarette, and he'd be rolling it. He'd say, Ranchy, we get over here to Amarillo. We're going to pull over, and I'm going to buy you a steak and a drink and show you how to live. And boy, he would, too.
There's a lot of great stories on Delbert out there.
There he is.
And, you know, he was also the spokesman for the steer ropers for a few years, too. Mm-hmm. He was our PRCA director.
Right,
so
right in the late 90s.
Yep. I appreciate everything Delbert ever did, and I just wanted to give a real good tip of the hat since he mentioned Delbert there.
Yep. You bet.
If you like steer roping, you would have liked Delbert.
That's right.
Because he loved it.
Yep.
He sure did.
How many times you rope over there, Mark J?
Oh, my gosh. I couldn't even count. Many.
Have you ever been to a better place to rope than that?
I've never been to a better spot. Delbert Kyler's and John Tall Chief is the best two arenas you could ever rope steers in.
You know, when you told me to bring a table with me and an Indian blanket to put on it, I brought the table and I brought the Indian blanket out there, and it's one that John Tall Chief gave me after winning his roping. And that was before it was a club roping or anything. All he had was an open roping and a senior roping with it when it first started. And me and Ed Goad won the senior roping. I won the open roping, and neither one of us had practiced in quite a while. And the next roping, we talked about how we hadn't practiced and won that roping and was really laughing about it. Told each other we didn't even need to practice anymore. And the next roping I went to was up here at the Roan Horse Arena. I drove to, and I saw Ed there. And we got to talking how we hadn't practiced since that last roping, and we expected to do good in this roping, and our true ability showed up that day, and I think neither one of us got one. So,
You know how Ed Goad practiced?
no.
He would have the cattle ready. He'd work the arena. He'd have me show up, get on his horse and rope, and he'd run the chutes. That's how Ed practiced.
He roped pretty good. He was a good horseman, too.
Yes, he was.
He's right over here in this area. There's a lot of good horses made over in this area, but there's a lot of miles to be rode in this
There's a
area.
lot of miles here.
You still riding any horses?
Some not like I want to or used to. I'm
Yeah.
on the road too much.
Speaking of horses, you had a couple good steer roping horses.
Yes, I did. In 96, I believe it was, I had one of them that was Prairie Circuit Steer Horse of the Year. He was Happy Hancock bred, and he died right down here in the pond one winter. I've been blessed. My grandpa always said, you get one good woman and one good horse in your lifetime, but I've had 2 or 3 good horses and one good woman.
Who helped you get started in steer roping, Mark?
You know, my dad used to put on some ropings up here at Cucklebird Junction. You probably remember it.
Yeah, I helped build it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And, gosh, I'd be there tracking the steers out, and they done time, and I wanted to trip so bad, and Dad told me I had to wait till I got older. And Frank Braden helped me. Gosh, just everybody around. John Tall Chief, Ed Goad. Ed Goad and I spent a lot of time in the arena together.
Right.
Ed always wanted to make the finals and never had the opportunity to go hard enough, and he pushed me to do it, you know. And he gave me a lot of sweat, and he gave me a lot of his time and his knowledge with a horse to help me get there, you know. Everybody around home, around Pawhuska area, I mean, Cody's dad even helped me a lot, you know. Rocky and Rod Hartness, we roped a bunch together. Delbert Kyler helped me. Gosh, just Case Bolts helped me. I mean, just everybody right here at home that ropes steers, you know.
Yeah. It's not hard to get a steer roper to help you, is it?
No, it's not. But right down to it, Frank Braden had more patience and more skill and talent than anyone alive.
He roped pretty good. You know, he made the finals several times. Roped there at Pawhuska, you know, and he was a pretty good steer roper.
You know, his family's still roping good to this day. I saw his grandsons. They were really tearing them up at the Prairie Circuit Finals last week. I saw they won the first round, and then I quit looking after that. We got busy all weekend.
Right. But Frank just lived right over here about 6 or 7 miles from me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I remember him well. Convenient. I was just a kid when he was doing most of his roping, but I remember him quite well.
His son, Bucky.
Yeah, and then Bucky.
Rookie of the Year, PRCA.
Yeah.
Bucky worked for my dad for a long time, and Bucky and I, we'd rope every day whether we needed to or not in the pasture.
Yeah.
Mainly on the wheat fields.
Yeah.
In the winter.
You know, Jimbo, his style, Marky J could saw their horns off.
Really?
You watch Kelly Casebolt and Todd Casebolt rope.
Right.
Mark J's style was a lot like theirs. He really didn't track up any.
Yeah.
Was deadly with the long loop. He could ride his horse if he needed to. He could get off if he needed to. If he had to, he'd put 2 wraps in a hui, but that wasn't very often.
Right.
Mostly 1.
Yeah.
And get your money.
Yeah.
You talk about sawing horns off. What really got me doing that when I was a kid, talking about at Cucklebird, you know, there's a guy by the name of Charlie Lynn. And I got to watching Charlie, and I told my dad, I said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to rope the dummy, and I'm going to get where I can rope a set of horns like Charlie Lynn. Nobody could rope a set of horns as pretty as Charlie Lynn.
Yep.
And I set my style after him as far as roping a set of horns. And it's funny we're talking about it because Charlie Lynn is one of my customers now in the cattle business, and I told Charlie that last July or August when we was shipping cattle. And of course, Charlie never wanted to be the guy on top or recognized. He told me to quit that.
Yeah. Yeah, he could rope.
He was a great roper.
Yeah, he was.
Charlie Lynn, all the Lynns.
Yep.
Really, really good ropers.
Yep, for sure. His dad roped at the first national finals ever, won the first go-around at the first national finals.
Is that right?
Yeah, Harry did.
See what I got to put up with this rodeo historian all the time.
He's got it, doesn't
He's
he?
got it.
What year was that?
59.
59.
Where was it?
Clayton, New Mexico.
Here we go. He could go all day. Time of day.
Single-digit temperature, wind blowing about 30 miles an hour. It was miserable. I was there, but I was just 3 years old.
Yeah.
His dad worked the chute.
Yeah.
Seriously.
My dad
Oh, I
worked the
believe
chute, and my grandpa and Joe both roped in it.
Roped in it.
Yep.
Yeah, his grandpa, he's getting inducted in the Cowboy Hall of Fame this year.
Boy, that's neat.
We're all looking real forward to it.
You bet.
When did your family start ranching this country up here?
Oh, my gosh. My grandfather was born in 1920. And he started over here on the west side. And when they built the Call Lake and they put the Call Dam in, the government come in to buy everybody's property, and that's when he moved to Pawhuska, north of Pawhuska, up by the Chapman Barnard. That's when he bought that country. So we've been here before 1920 because my great-grandfather, he came here and started as well. Right down here along this river and stuff. The Arkansas River's where he started. So we've been here that long.
And you've ranched continuously since that time, somewhere in Osage County.
Continuously. Yes. And I've been right here in this place since 74 or 76. I've been right here in this place.
Now, for everybody that doesn't know, we talked about your, I guess it'd be great-granddad, 1920, right?
That's my granddad.
That's your granddad. So that'd be Mark Freeman Sr.?
Junior.
Junior. His dad, Mark Freeman Sr.
Yes, sir.
Your dad, Mark Freeman III.
Third.
You're Mark Freeman the fourth.
And then my son's a fifth.
Your son's the fifth. Well, that's special right there, Jimbo.
It sure is. And nice family. His granddad was just one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. Did a lot of welding work for him up there on that ranch back in the late 70s, and just couldn't ask for a nicer guy. I remember one time I was really into coon hunting back then, and while we were working up there, and I hate to ask because a lot of ranchers don't want dogs out there at night,
Sure.
and stuff. And I asked him if he'd mind if we come up and went coon hunting sometime there on Buck Creek, and he said, "I've never seen a long-eared dog bother a cow, so just come on."
You bet.
That's just the kind of guy he was.
How much country did your family have up there at one time?
His place up there's, gosh, right around 10,000 acres.
Now, for everybody that doesn't have it, that's never been on a 10,000 acre place, what all entails of the day-to-day running of a 10,000 acre ranch, Mark J?
Well, it depends on where you're at, but up there,
We're right here in the Osage.
it pertains to a lot of rock.
Yes, sir.
You deal with a lot of rock, but as far as my time, fences became old, so we got a lot of fencing. They wear out. Now we have spraying to do. We're fortunate enough to have that in our line of work now. We can spray and control weeds where we can graze more cattle. Going through the cattle, keeping water gaps in, controlling brush. I mean, there's a lot to ranching.
Well, how often would you gather them?
Cow-calf operation.
When you work them?
A cow-calf operation, you'll gather them twice a year. Once when you brand your calves when they're on their mama, and then the second time when you wean them, So it's twice a year gathering them like that. On a yearling outfit, I mean, it can be 3 or 4 times a year. Just depends on what all you're doing with your operation. Like me, I've got a grow yard here at my headquarters, a little feed yard, and it can be year-round, 8 days a week.
A lot of work.
A lot of work.
A lot of fence fixing. A lot of riding through cattle, looking probably for sick ones or
Sure.
crippled ones or two-headed ones, let me know if you get one of those. I've been looking for one, a two-headed
Probably
one.
want to say Justin across its forehead or something like that.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But what about feeding cattle for the winter? Enlighten us on some stuff that your average person that they don't know.
So this time of year, we're feeding a couple days a week. Then it'll go to 3 days a week. And then by the end of the year, it's 7 days a week, depending on the weather, But it's 7 days a week. You're feeding certain times of year. You got to be putting out hay besides just the cake, So they come first. It's a full-time deal.
Got to count them.
Sure.
Every day you feed.
Every day's a count. Every day's a count.
What if you're off on a count? How long do you let it go before you start?
That's when you go find them.
Looking immediately.
Right then.
Right then.
Right then.
You ever miscounted and looked all day and then went back and say, "Oh man"?
I've looked for a lot of ghosts.
Well, how does a guy get to where he can just look at a steer or a cow and know how much he weighs and?
You're kind of born with it, I guess, because I try to teach it to people, and I don't know how to teach it to someone. I've been fortunate. I've had that since I was a little old kid, but I think it's because I've weighed so many cattle. You take a picture of those cattle and put it in your mind of how long, how deep, how tall, how wide, condition of them, how much hair's on them, and it just becomes natural to you. You're born with it. It's a natural instinct.
And you probably learn it.
Yeah,
if that's all you ever do, you start to learn it, I would assume.
Yeah, you do. And I was fortunate. I mean, my dad would send me places when I was 10 or 12 years old weighing cattle for him. I'd be the guy writing the checks and doing all the bookwork, and driving. I was even driving there.
Yeah.
The highway patrolmans all knew it even, but I was fortunate my dad would impound that in me like he did. Then I didn't know what he was doing, but now I do. But I'm just lucky to be able to look at a set of cattle and know what they weigh.
I suppose you know what they're worth, too.
I usually know what one's worth.
So what do you do now, Mark J? Are you a cattle buyer?
Yeah, I'm with a company called Superior Livestock, and it's the largest livestock marketing company in the world. So what we do, if you got cattle you want to sell, load lots of cattle, meaning semi-loads. I come to your ranch, we look at your cattle, we write a contract, we have deadlines, because we have a sale every 2 weeks, so we have a deadline every week because we mail out catalogs. And then I film your cattle, we video them, we show a video. I can tell you approximately what time we're going to sell your cattle. I could have you on the phone when they're selling. You're more than welcome to be at the sale. And then we have the largest buyers list in the world as well. So the buyers are all notified online. They can call in on our bid line. They can be at the sale. Once we sell the cattle, I come back to deliver the cattle to you, to the buyer, and I pay you for the cattle. So meaning I make 2 trips to that ranch a year, at least twice on that particular set of cattle. But it's the way things are now. Everything's internet. Just like through the COVID, we just kept on going. We didn't shut down because we didn't have to have a big group of people, so we could keep moving cattle. We could be on them ranches. We wasn't around people in town. We wasn't shaking hands, so we was able to keep cattle moving, to feed the world.
Is this something that's growing? I mean, just getting bigger every year?
Yeah, Jimbo, I tell you what, I've been with them since 2013, and it's grown every year. I started in May of 2013, and that's the day that National Livestock took over Superior Livestock. And it's grown every year. It really grew. I've noticed it really grew through COVID. and help people market their cattle, you know.
And they probably won't go back. I mean, to the old way then, will they, if they like how it worked?
No, I really can't name a customer that goes a different route once they've tried it.
Yeah, once they've tried it.
And it takes a while. They got to build their reputation just like they would in Oklahoma City or Pawnee or South Coffeyville, wherever. You got to build your reputation of your cattle. And a lot of that's in the representative, how he describes them and delivers them to the buyers, you know.
Right.
And it works good. Superior can help ranchers unbelievable, from bull power to programs that's out there today as far as natural cattle. And we have the buyer basis for all that stuff. And we have all the affidavits and contracts that you sign, you know, to make it all legit and makes your cattle worth the money.
So if I'm looking for a certain type of cattle, no matter what it is, give you a call.
I'll find them.
And you'll find me a truckload of them,
I'll have
all
them.
just like I want, every dang one of them.
Yes, sir.
If I don't like them, tell you, and you'll find me. You'll take and sell them.
That's right.
Probably make a profit on them because he bought them worth the money.
There you go.
And find you what you want. Very few people have been raised like this guy. It's bought and sold cattle as many ever as Mark J and his family. So that's something to be said for that right there. He knows what he's doing, Jimbo.
Oh, absolutely. You know, because like I say, he comes from a long tradition of ranching here in the Osage.
What about hay baling? Do you do much of that?
No, I buy all my hay.
Most rodeo cowboys don't know much about hay baling.
I know all about it, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, we decide we don't like it. It's like shoeing our own horses.
That's right.
Gosh, dang.
Those other people got to make a living.
That's right.
Mark J, what was your favorite rodeo to rope at?
The one he won. Or the ones he won, I'm going to guess.
Oh, I liked Pendleton. Just because it was a little ranchy, you know?
Yeah.
Being on the grass. You might have been there that one year when my steer went over the rail there at the track. And I was riding that spotted horse.
Okay.
And I just over and undered him, and I went over the track, over the rail with him, and tied him right there on the track.
Got a little ranchy
Got a little ranchy.
up there in Pendleton. He's up there tearing stuff up just like it is done here. He didn't track up very far on one I've ever seen him. I never saw Mark J take one swing over one's back. He was letting it loose coming into him.
Well, they were going to clap for you at the other end.
The paint horse. Where'd he come from?
You know, he originated out of Tahlequah. And then...
Skillet.
Skillet. He originated out of Tahlequah. Billy Joe Dillbeck had him. Team roped on him. Kelly Case Boat got him. Started tripping on him some. And then I got him. And he didn't have no papers or nothing. But he fit me.
I remember one of the first big rodeos you took him to. Odessa, Texas. Sand Hills Rodeo. He won it.
Yeah.
And that's the year you made the finals, right?
It is. It was in 98.
What kind of sacrifice was it to make the finals for you?
It was a lot.
I remember it was a long year for you that year.
It was a lot. I had a dream and a goal to make the finals. My dad and my grandfather both was kind of against me for roping because they said I was wasting time and money. I needed to be taking care of business. And I thought, I just want to go and have it for me. And I sacrificed it. And you want to talk about no practicing like you and Ed? Well, when I went to Odessa that year, I entered, didn't know if I was going to go. Hadn't been on my horse since October. Besides, around the feed yard, I'd pull sick cattle on him. So I put a 06 steer in the hallway of the barn and laid him down, run down there and tied him 3 or 4 times on the left, 3 or 4 times on the right. So I'm going to leave in the morning and go to Odessa. So I did, and it turned out good. I was fresh. my horse was in shape just from riding him and wasn't sore from roping. And it worked out. But it became a sacrifice because I was busy and I probably let some business go. But I don't care who you are. If you want to make the finals, it's going to be a sacrifice. And you better work at it or you're not going to make it. So I lived it, eat it, breathe it. I miss it today. I miss it every day, but I know that's not where my living's at. It's just something that I'll probably always miss.
I remember that next year, after you made the finals, we saw you at a few rodeos, and then all of a sudden, we didn't see him again.
He's gone.
Ever. Next time I saw him was at a few years later, actually, at John Tallchief's roping right over here, Jimbo.
What made you quit? I mean, is there some snapping, you know, and you say, I'm going to do this, or
Got to make a living.
got to make a living, right?
And I also wanted to be in the ranching business, the cattle business. I mean, it was in my family, you know. And
Sure.
it was in my blood. I can remember going with Guy Allen some, and I'd be making margin call. I'd be calling. They'd be or my hedging outfit would be saying, "Hey, you got margin calls doing this and that." And Guy'd hear me talking. I'd be talking to feed yards where I was feeding cattle. And Guy's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was trying to explain it to him, and that's when I realized that Guy just all he knew was roping. He could tell you your first steer 5 years ago at Cheyenne, what color he was, and what you could have done to be quicker on him. I couldn't do that. I mean, I had a desire and a dream to go on and do some other things. I just wanted to make the finals and prove it to myself. And that year, we're getting to the end of the year. We're at KC, Wyoming.
Now, he started off the year winning the world. Where are you at coming into this part of the year? Coming into KC, there's only a few rodeos left. Because I don't remember, Mark J.
14th.
Down there on the bubble.
14th.
That's what I was thinking.
We're at KC. There's KC left. We get done at KC. We go to Pendleton, and the year's over. And I sat down on this bench, and Guy sitting there. And Roy Cooper's right behind me, and that's not the guy you want right behind you.
JDH is right there, too.
JDH.
Yeah, two of the
You're
baddest
right.
guys in the game.
You're right.
Period.
He was there.
You don't want either one of them right there with you.
And I think JD ended up 15th that year, and Roy ended up 16th.
By like $2 or $3, one of the smallest margins in rodeo history.
And I said, Guy, I said, how come you're number one every year? He said, well, you go home and work. And he said, I go home and rope. And he said, just like tonight, you won fourth in the round, and you should have won at least second in the round. He said, you panicked just a little bit when that steer stopped. And he said, it's because you've never seen that happen yet. So you had to panic a little bit to get through it. And he said, do you know how many sets of horns you missed this year? Counting the big jackpots like the Ben Johnson, the Wesley Sims, San Angelo. I said, no, I don't have a clue. He said, you missed 7 sets of horns. I said, really? I said, how many did you miss? He said, I missed like 20-some. I said, well, why are you number one and I'm number 14 then? You know? Mm-hmm. He said, well, just like tonight, you panicked a little bit. But he could keep track of that. And it's just something. The next year, I went a little bit, and I think if I remember right, I ended up 16th the next year, and you was talking about a few dollars. This was cents.
Oh, wow.
It was cents.
Well, maybe it was the next year you went maybe just a little bit, and maybe
I went just a little bit, not that much, and then towards the end, I thought, boy, I could still make it, and I better start going. And I love it. I don't regret none of it. And I'll miss it from here on out.
Yeah, but it's just part of your life, you know, and like you say, you proved it that you could make the finals, and I can understand that.
I just had to prove it to myself.
Sure.
John Tallchief was probably more happy than anybody alive when I made the national finals. Because growing up here, and I'd be in his arena every weekend, team roping or whatever it might be, and he followed me. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law followed me. My practice chute, my father-in-law made it when I was a kid, when I roped calves as a kid, But John was so excited because I was 14th. This is better than winning the world to me, because my back number was 14. That's what John Tallchief's back number was. And when I seen him smile because it was the 14th, it's better than winning the world.
That's great. Won't you fill everybody in on who John Tallchief was? I knew him, Jimbo, we all knew him, but there's a lot of people out there that need to know who he is and who he was.
John Tallchief's an Osage. It was Osage man that was raised here. He roped steers. He put on ropings. He was a rancher. Football player, too. And then his brother George was right there beside him. George was actually a bull rider and a school teacher here in Osage, and we called him Papa John. He was all of us as Papa. This is how he was to us,
Weren't they veterans too? Didn't they go to?
They did.
Yeah,
Yes, they did. Yes, sir. They sure did.
Was he ever the chief of the Osages?
George was.
George was his brother.
George was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew John always had a big entourage around everywhere he went, so I always assumed he was a former chief for some reason.
Well,
Your father-in-law, Brownie, he was always with him. God, that guy's... I miss old Brownie. I need to see him pretty soon.
that was back when they drank beer, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, John coming out to our house and roping with my grandpa. That would have been back in the early '60s. And there was another guy from over here by the name of Buster Lashley that came out and roped a little bit. I remember him well.
You said you guys were over there from around Caw City originally? That's where you guys started ranching?
No, just right up north here. Be west of Burbank.
Oh, okay.
Call Lake.
Caw Lake.
Call Lake. Mm-hmm.
What about Henry Grammer up there? You ever hear any old stories on Henry Grammer?
Yeah, and my grandfather always had in that bunkhouse up there at his ranch, he had a picture of Henry Grammer, and Henry Grammer made him a quirt, made my grandfather a quirt, hitched it out of horsehair. And he told me some stories. I'd hate to repeat them because I'm not sure if I'd tell them right, about how he'd meet him at gates, on the old road. There was gates that you still went through.
Okay.
And
Pre-cattle guards then.
pre-cattle.
You had to go through
There you
gates.
go. Had to go through the gate. But they kind of, if I remember this correctly, they exchanged words at a gate one day about who was going to shut the gate. And Henry Grammer was known to be Henry Grammer. And my grandfather told me, he said, Henry ended up shutting the gate. And he said we became really good friends after that. Which Henry was a lot older than my grandfather too, but they became friends after that.
Okay. That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
I heard a good story on him one time over here at a roping in Fairfax. I guess steer roping was illegal in Fairfax at one time. The ladies of the town got together and decided to make it illegal. And they were having a steer roping here, and Ben Johnson Sr. was here and a whole bunch of others. And the sheriff had came and stopped the steer roping.
Wow.
Henry Grammer wasn't roping in it, but he happened to be driving by. He pulled up in there. He got Ben. He said, "What's going on here, boys?" And they said, "Well, the sheriff said we can't have the steer roping here." And they said it was right here in Fairfax. So,
Yeah, it was right west of towns.
and they said Henry went and said, "Okay." He went and asked Ben Johnson, "Hey, you mind if I run one on your horse real quick?" Ben Johnson Sr. So he got on Ben Johnson Sr.'s horse, went and tied a steer down, left the steer tied right there, led the horse back, gave him to Ben Johnson and said, "Now you boys go on with your steer roping." The sheriff got in his car and left. Now, Dale Christensen told me that, which is Ben Johnson Sr.'s grandson.
Right.
So that was directly from his from a grandfather to his grandson, relayed directly to me. So that's really a wild story.
Yeah, that
about
is.
Henry Grammer right there.
Yeah. That arena, do you know where that arena was, Jimbo?
No, not that one.
It was right here west of town, about where the nursing home is now, right here west of Fairfax. George Wayman, they always said he had a really good stud horse, and he would judge a rodeo on that horse. But when it come into the bronc riding, he'd put the horse in the string of broncs, and they'd buck him out. And I guess he never got rode as a bucking horse. And as soon as the bronc riding was over, George would go put his saddle on him, get on him, and start judging. And they said that at the end of the arena, they had to park cars because there was no fence on the end of it. So they'd park cars to make the end of the arena, kind of like Lower Brill, South Dakota. They'd park cars there, you know.
Hey, we rolled into Lower Brill, South Dakota one time, and the weeds in the arena were over my head. And they went and knocked them down just in time for the steer open that morning, and it rained about a foot. It was real good roping up there. Lower Brill, South Dakota. I'm glad they had it, though. Right on the Indian reservation.
Right on the reservation. Yeah.
I could tell you a few more stories about Lower Brill, South Dakota that year, but I just don't remember them, Jimbo.
Why don't you remember them?
I made a lot of memories back then that I don't remember, but everybody else seems to have. So, Mark J, you were telling me here a while back about all your traveling. I went and visited you about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 4 years ago now, right here at this house. And you're saying, oh, yeah, I've been to Colorado and Texas and I don't even know where, Louisiana and Missouri, and trading cattle for Superior. Every day he was on the road, driving thousands and how many miles were you driving?
It's a bunch. I got a pickup now. It's 3 months old and got 26,000 miles on it. And when I'm home, it don't get drove.
And I said, are you flying? And he said, no, I ain't flying anywhere. So I asked him why, and he filled me in. So, Mark J, tell me and everybody else about that day that you decided to quit flying. You might be flying again by now, but I don't blame you.
I've been flying. I flew some since then. I still don't like it.
You broke down.
And, yeah, we was flying once, and plane goes down, or the engine quits. Both engines quit.
Where were you headed? Leaving from?
Leaving from Cheyenne, and we was going to Burwell. That'd be right.
Yeah.
That's
correct.
That time.
It's right during that time of year.
What we're doing, we're in South Dakota. And the engines quit. I'm up front. And we land in a cornfield. And
what was it like when the engines quit? What did Arnold tell you?
Arnold was fine. I seen a little sweat bead coming down, but he was good.
Cool as a cucumber.
Oh, yeah. Like it was nothing.
Just like way ropes, Mr. Cool, smooth.
If I ever get in a little plane, it'll be with a real pilot. It won't be with a steer roper.
Yeah, or just stay out of them.
Or just stay. I don't like little planes. I fly the big ones all the time. I love it. But
yeah, just stay out of them. I just don't care to fly, and what I do, you kind of got to have your pickup anyway to get on all them ranches.
Right.
So I just stay right there.
There you go.
Both engines quit. You're up in the air. You're in the front seat.
That's all it is. Just like on TV.
Did you have your head between your knees? What were you doing?
I was praying.
This is before cell phones. It ain't like you had a cell phone up there to call home to tell anybody goodbye or anything.
No, you wasn't worried about telling anybody goodbye anyway. I did pull my seatbelt pretty tight. I cinched up. And it was real noisy hitting all that corn. It was noisy.
Thank God you had a cornfield to land in, though, not just an old rough rocky pasture or gullies or...
That highway looked good to me.
Yeah, I imagine it did.
Well, they had to go with the windrows. So they wouldn't go over all them bumps.
I don't know if we went with windrows or not. It was all rough. It was all rough.
So – Arnold, he just lands it like a pro.
Like it's nothing.
Did you kiss the ground when you got out?
You know, Cody, I don't know if I kissed the ground, but I sure appreciate Mother Earth.
Did you have to wipe when you got out of there?
I think
Wipe
probably
your rear
so.
end, change pants. Holy moly. Did you make it to Burwell that night?
We did.
That's the most important thing.
We did.
You didn't have to turn out.
We did. And I rode back with Rod Hartness from Burwell to Cheyenne. I didn't go back and get a plane.
Just left it in the cornfield.
Yeah, I'm done.
Who else was in there with you?
I was trying to think who was in the back, and they was screaming bloody murder. I'll probably think about it. I'll think of it here in a little bit.
Okay.
They was scared. And they was making it worse on me because they're scared. My dad always taught me, you're in a bind, you don't panic, stay calm. This was almost time to panic.
Yeah, can't believe Arnold didn't have a parachute in there or something.
He'd probably just had one, though.
I mean, if it's like every old cowboy rig, I mean, he's done putting some bell and wire and duct tape on that plane right before they take off. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
trying to get to the next rodeo.
That'd be like hauling a Pake. He may have a windshield in, or it might all be duct taped. But he just had a one horse, so he'd get in and go with us. He wouldn't. You couldn't ever go with Pake, really.
Pake ever buy your dinner after a rodeo?
I don't think he did.
I can't. I went with him a few times.
And he always wanted you to buy the cards to play gin going down the road. He wouldn't even buy the cards.
He wouldn't even buy the cards.
No. He wouldn't buy me and J. Paul a fortune cookie. I'll never forget it. So, Cushing, Oklahoma's going on. Sheridan, Wyoming's going on. So, J. Paul and I talk, and he takes his rig to Sheridan, and I take my rig to Sheridan. Well, we get up there. J. Paul, myself, and Pake all make the short round, but we had to be at Cushing the next morning, and we couldn't get no flights. So we get in my rig and we drive, and we make it to Cushing. And we rope at Cushing. Then we get in this little plane at Cushing. And that pilot, he's grabbing our rope cans, weighing them, you know. I mean, it's like a generator sitting there. You got earplugs in and everything. Me and J. Paul's in the back, just kind of shoved in there, and Pake's up front with the pilot. And I kind of look at that pilot. We're going across Colorado, and I look at that pilot, and he's over there, got on autopilot, and he's asleep. So I tell Pake, you can't hear each other and talking there. And I tell Pake, and I just kind of show him my hands. That guy's asleep. Pake, he slaps him on the back of the head or something, you know. And anyway, we land up there. We rope, and we're driving J. Paul's rig back. I don't remember what town we was in, but I'm telling you, at high noon, Pake McIntyre is going to eat no matter what's going on or where he's at. He is going to stop and eat. So he asked J. Paul and I, he said, you guys like Chinese food? And J. Paul and I both said no. J. Paul goes, there's a K-Bob's right there. Everybody likes it. Pull in there and we'll eat. Well, Pake just pulls in the Chinese place because that's where he wants to eat. The good young men J. Paul and I are, we decide just go in there with a smile and eat. And we do. So the lady brings us our ticket, and Pake said, hey, what about our fortune cookies? And she said, oh, you'd like a fortune cookie? They're 25 cents. And he goes, well, bring me one. And J. Paul said, I tell you what, bring us all one, and I'll pay for them because I'm not like Pake is.
Yeah, frugal.
Yeah. So I'll never forget old Pake wouldn't even buy us a fortune cookie for $0.25. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could have had a good fortune in there, you know. No. He'd take our rig and wouldn't buy us a fortune cookie.
When I was about 10 or 12 years old up at Cheyenne, my dad had left me up there for a week with some people.
On purpose?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was having a grand old time up at Cheyenne. And I caught a ride with Pake and his family. They asked me if I wanted to go eat with them, and I did. And that's the first time I ever had to buy my own meal when I went out to eat with a bunch of grown-ups.
Surprised you didn't have to buy Pakes too.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I would have, though.
Yeah.
Even back then. But yeah, that was the first dealing I ever had with him.
Mm-hmm.
And right then I was like, oh, he's a little different than most grown-ups when you go out to eat with him.
Bless his heart, I'd make him so mad. Just because we was good friends, you know. We'd be going down the road and radio would be on. Pake would just start singing with him. Pake, who sings that song? Oh, George Strait. Well, let him sing it then. Pake couldn't help it. He was going to sing a tune no matter what. And he didn't ask him what time it was because his favorite saying was, today? Yes, Pake, what time is it right now? He'd make a guy laugh.
He's a good guy.
He's great.
We did a podcast with him just the other day. We had a good time down there, didn't we, Jimbo?
A lot of laughs.
A lot of laughs. Even when it was over, we were laughing.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. We should have had it rolling when it was over.
I know.
It would have even been better.
Yeah.
You know, Jimbo, one time Mark J here, I thought that he won the Ben Johnson steer roping. You remember that day better than anybody. Tell us what happened.
It's on film.
Okay.
So
I was there. I saw it. I was telling Jimbo about it the other day.
The Ben Johnson grow up here, want to rope steers.
Yeah, let's fill people in on what the Ben Johnson roping is. And this is your hometown roping, the biggest roping for you to win probably besides the
there's no others.
Okay, the Ben Johnson's your top roping.
It'll be
even
the
bigger
biggest-
than world champion or average champion at the finals.
Yeah, the Ben Johnson would be it just because you're in the Osage. So I got along pretty good that day. I mean, I roped good, drew good, and everything going good. And I'm coming in the short round, leading it. And I draw a really good steer in the short round.
It was a hot booger that day.
Oh, it was hot. And old Dan Taylor would pull the barrier. And I've been around enough. I knew to let your steer a little further the later the day got because Dan had some age on him, and he would pull that string just a little bit slower. And he might have been in his bag there nipping on the jug a little bit to make him a little slower too. And I knew it. And I didn't have an ounce of pressure on me. I was so relaxed. I was so glad to have that steer. And I had all day to time. And I let the steer completely to the line. And everybody's hollering, go, 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 you know. And I know I've let him for enough. And I win the round, win the average. Kirk Robertson's announcing, and he's wound up about it. And all of a sudden, Kirk goes, no, he breaks out. And I'm like, I couldn't have broke the barrier. And there were several ropers that went up to Dan and said, he didn't break that barrier. You pulled it late. And when I rode out of that arena, I rode right past Dan. And everybody kept saying, you need to go talk to him. You need to go talk to him. And I said, no. Here in a couple of weeks, we'll be at Cheyenne. He's going to be pulling that same barrier. And I'm not going to do it. And my dad had it on film, and he was disgusted. And when I got to Cheyenne and I went in to pay my entry fees, Dan was sitting there in that little room, you know. And he follows me outside, and he said, hey, I want to talk to you. Yes, sir. He said, you know, I seen some film, and he said, you didn't break that barrier. I said, no, I knew I let him far enough. I said, but, you know, you're pulling it, and you're the judge. He said, why didn't you say something to me? And I said, you're the judge. And so all that let me do was really run at the barrier at Cheyenne, and I knew he was going to pull it. And it worked in the first round at Cheyenne for me.
Well, it wouldn't have done any good to say anything to him anyway after the fact, would it?
No.
He wasn't going to change it at that point.
He wouldn't have. No.
So you handled it.
He would have never forgot it.
Right.
You questioning him.
Sure.
You know? And I appreciated other ropers going up there if I remember right, CA ended up winning it that year, didn't he? CA Lauer,
Probably.
I think. And CA even went up to Dan and told him that, I mean, all the guys that was right behind me in the average was going, no. I was glad to see them guys do it, but I was just going to ride out of that arena with a smile. In my eyes, I knew what I'd done, and I won the Ben Johnson. That was good enough for me.
Right.
Well, that ought to be a lesson for all these younger guys coming up that like to argue with everybody.
Yeah. It don't do no good.
Doesn't do any good.
No.
And it means more of the other guys arguing for you than it would you arguing it, in my opinion.
At Woodward, they held the slack at C.A. Lauer's there at Buffalo, and I tie steer, went around. Kelly Corbin's a judge, and had a left-hand tie. Well, I put a hickey on the right horn, and I didn't realize it. Steer's horn's down on the ground. I couldn't see it. I went ahead and tied him. Kelly comes up and rides off. They give me a time, and 2 or 3 guys went to hollering and saying stuff, and somebody, it might have been Rod Harness, might have been Rocky Garnett, somebody said, get that steer down at the other end. Well, steer going down there, and Kelly comes loping up there, and he said, when they took that rope off, did you have a hickey on the horn? I said, yes, sir, I sure did. He said, that's my fault. He said, thanks for being honest. So, you win some and you lose some. So there wasn't no need arguing with Dan about it.
No.
They get you on a few, and then they might give you a few.
That's right. That's how it goes. That's why it's called rodeo.
If you don't have instant replay or something to go by, you're right. And I like that attitude.
Yep.
You don't hear that attitude too much anymore, which is all right too. Sorry, scratching my eye there.
You're good.
Well, Mark J, you got anything else from Mark J, Jimbo?
Well, just like to thank him for inviting us into his home tonight and helping us with this podcast. I think it'll really be interesting. I've enjoyed all the stories and the history of his family here and his roping and the whole deal. I think it's very interesting. Thank you.
One more thing. You know what's pretty neat, Cody? I don't use a calf table a lot. We still drag calves, but I do have a calf table, and Jimbo Snively made it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And then I just found out he built my barn that's here.
Yeah. I didn't know this is his dad's place. I came here working for George Carter back in the 70s, but we came in from Highway 60, so I was all turned around. I didn't realize it was the same place.
I didn't know you're so handy, Jimbo.
Well, you thought it was a one-trick pony, didn't you? Well, I'm not.
I want to thank you all for coming over.
Hey, Mark J, why do you think so many great cowboys come from this Osage County area up here?
There's great cowboys from all over. There really is. But Ben Johnson kind of started it as far as the steer roping and stuff. The steer roping got big here and got famous. I mean, you had Orban Garrett that roped calves, and
they had all kinds of it.
It was just
Lewis
here.
Brooks, bronc rider.
Yeah.
Bob Wegner, bull rider. Mm-hmm. Right down the road, we had the 101 Ranch. Right over there, we had the Dewey Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. It was all. We're just fortunate to be here. All those guys that started it for us, and passed it on down to us. Just like, I guess you get on my Osage side, there's so many important things that's been passed down to us. We're just lucky to be here and be part of the Osage.
What do you think about the new movie coming out? What's your feelings on it?
What would your grandpa thought about the movie?
He just wanted to be told right, I think. And I hope it does. My wife's she was over there, I don't know how many days. She was there a lot. And, of course, we don't know until they get done editing it. But I hope it opens people's eyes and they tell it like it is. And it's not just out to make the FBI look good. I hope it tells it just how it was, for some reason, when I was young, you didn't talk about them things much, you know.
Right.
It's kind of shameful.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bad things happened around here.
Yep.
A lot of good things, too, though.
A lot of great things, too. The Osage people, they got the raw deal. For sure.
But we're still here.
But this movie, you know, star-studded cast. Did they film any of it over here on your ranch?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's going to be something else.
Yeah, I can't wait. Watch it.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Oh, it'll win all the awards, too, I think. I'll be
think
surprised if it doesn't.
I think so. I think next we're going to get Cody will come with a movie. We're going to make a movie.
Right.
He could be Cody Bill or something like that.
Right. He's got the look.
Yeah, he's got it going on.
I've been thinking about getting a haircut, Jimbo.
Cody, if you got a haircut, you'd spend all your time introducing yourself because you don't look right without your hair.
Surprised Mark J ain't held me down and cut it off since we've been here.
My son's is that long.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Does he work on the ranch any with you? Sort any cattle? Has he got the eye? Has he got the family eye?
You know, when he was little, he could pull sick cattle good, and I think I burned him up a little bit. But right now, he's taking care of the feed yard. Just kind of started. Our hired man's gotten sick, you know, and so he stepped up the plate doing that, and our daughter's taking care of the cows. And
How special is that for you?
it's real special. It's hard for Lynette and I to step down a little bit, but it's going to be neat to watch them and let them keep on going with it, you know.
Mark Freeman V.
Got a ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he's wanting to be a lawyer, so look out.
Well, look at these guys are just like those Duttons on the Yellowstone, except for all the crime, you know.
I told you he was thinking about a movie.
Right.
Getting a lawyer in the family right here. They've been ranching the Osage since before 1920. Your granddad was born up here. Mm-hmm. Was his dad born up here?
No, my great-grandfather rode a covered wagon out of Tennessee to come over here and marry an Osage woman, and that's what he done.
That's too cool, man.
Yep.
What was her maiden name?
Grace Lesser.
Bless her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mark J, thank you so much for telling us all this great stuff that nobody knew about you. Very few folks.
Thank
It's
you,
good seeing
Cody.
you again.
You too, bud.
And you don't got anything else for him, Jimbo?
No, I'm good. But
I ain't got
it was a great
anything else
time.
for him. Hey, if you need some cattle, get a hold of him.
That's right.
He'll buy them for you, and he'll buy them right.
You bet.
He'll buy just what you're looking for.
Or if you need to market some, get a hold of me.
If you need to market cattle, get a hold of him.
Or get a hold of Cody. And
All
he'll
his
get a
old
hold of me.
rodeo buddies, get a hold of him. Call and give him a hard time. People that hadn't seen him in a long time.
Right. Yeah.
Well, this has just been great, Mark. And thank you so much for sitting down with us. And Jimbo, thanks for coming over here with us again today.
My pleasure.
Hey, Cody, I want to thank you for everything you're doing here in the Osage and Pawhuska and everything that you do.
Well,
it's been good for us.
This has been like a home place for me ever since I've ever been coming up here since I was a little kid. So
He's done more for Pawhuska, or as much for Pawhuska and Cowboys and the Western way of life as anybody.
He really
Sure
has. And it's appreciated more than you'll ever know.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate that coming from you, man. You're a good friend, and thank you too, Jimbo. And we'll be seeing everybody next week.
All right.
Right
Sounds
here on
good.
Cowboys of the Osage. We'll probably come back out here and visit old Mark again one of these days.
We'd love
You
to.
bet.
All right. See everybody next week right here.
Adios.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Mark J.